even though I've done shows, 13 of the last 14 days. And generally both weekend days are kind of optional, that they should set up the YouTube interface on the off chance that I got back from some of my obligations today in time to jump up on there and do a little dance. I was always happy to help out, but I'm literally walking back in the door, and I've kept a pretty good eye on things today, and I'm firing up the old database and schedule grid and other things and see what we can do here. So I am happy to lend what little expertise I might have for the next 41 minutes before DraftKings lock, although if memory serves, DK locks an hour before FanDuel, who managed to have made the incorrect scheduling decision 2 weeks in a row. Last week, they said, okay, even though we don't have late swap, we'll go early, even though there's only one game at the early lock time, which was probably the incorrect decision. And then this week, there are 2 games at the early lock time out of only 6, and they said, okay, we'll skip those. So it's pretty hard to screw that up both ways. So shout out to FanDuel for managing to land on the wrong side of correct behavior 2 times in a row. Sending out a couple messages to people who are crawling up in my shizzle, wondering where I am, because apparently I was confirmed being here even though I couldn't be here. Otto Porter is out, Rudy Gay is out. That's interesting. That should give you some interest in Kelly Oubre, one of a number of pretty interestingly priced wings in that price range. I like Kelly Oubre. There are any number of Jonathans who might be out for Orlando today, being Isaac and Simmons. If both of them are out, Terrence Ross at around the same price, same activity. Somebody I like in that matchup, Damian Dotson, who is a DraftKings exclusive player. See? It's a feature. Certainly makes some sense. But yeah, Kelly Oubre, I presume now gets the start. This will also add... what am I thinking here? This will also add Jeff Green back as a reasonable tournament player, because we can project him to get enough minutes to maybe make that work out. Josh Okogie is basically the same price, same position. Another guy I'd have some interest in. So ranking all those semi-valuable mid-priced wings are going to be interesting here. Let me see if I can fire up the restream. So I'm not even certain we're live. It says we're streaming, and I saw a tweet, so I'm guessing we're live. Let me see if I can launch the YouTube chat. Let's see if we can make some lemonade. It says this chat is ready to display messages. If you're listening to me on YouTube, say something. I'm curious if I'll see it. Let me fire up the premium Slack, and then I will, I suppose, start talking about games for a second. And after that, take some questions, if perchance I'm speaking to anyone at all. Otherwise, this will just be some oddly self-referential talking to oneself research time. Eddie is live. Someone just went live. Hey, okay. So apparently this is going on. So that the hey, what's up? Hey, what's up? Brooke said he wants to get more minutes for Shadowronski. Yeah, and this would certainly, represent an opportunity to do so. The issue there. Oh God, yeah. Okay. Microphone in. Yeah, today I'd probably play Bertans. I had a real, as a tout, you have your own sort of list of achievements, and one of the ones I had never unlocked was successfully tout Dante Cunningham, which is a rare quantity to come true, but I checked that box yesterday, working on the late slate, recommending him over Wesley Johnson, who picked up the start for Narlands in that game. Figured it was maybe the spot he could get it done, and he got it done. So now never have to recommend Dante Cunningham to anyone again the rest of my life. So that's pretty exciting news. So let's see what we're going on here. So weird day. We had the early game, Kings and Bucks, which I haven't had time to look at, and I'm half tempted to take. I'm just going to take a quick squoj to see what Giannis' stat line is, because I'm just guessing here, but I bet it's pretty good. Oh God, get all this football shit off my screen, ESPN. Giannis Antetokounmpo has played 25 minutes, has 22, 10, 7, 1, and 1. Yeah, I was pretty sure that was going to turn out okay for Big G. Okay, sorry, that was just for me. Not quite done with the third quarter, and that's... Oh, we just got another assist, 22, 10, and 8. You're about to get G-Money triple-double coming up here. So, yeah, he's sitting on like 54 or something, and we're not quite done with three quarters. Damn it, they're up by 21. He's not going to get a fourth quarter. That's a damn shame. Maybe they'll leave him out there to rack up a triple-double, Russell Westbrook style. Okay, so yeah, let's get in here and I'll just talk about some shizzle and then get in and talk about specifics. So that game going on already. I'm sure there were some excellent single game slates for that. Hopefully you played them and played Giannis and correctly guessed the right value. It's a blowout, so for the Kings, Frank Mason gets to play, Justin Jackson gets to play, Marvin Bagley gets to play. So that would have been the first lineup I would have built, where the Bucks, who are amazing and are like best net rating in the NBA right now and top 5 in offense and defense and look tremendous, we're probably going to kick their ass. They're kicking their ass. So you play Giannis, who is going to get 60 in his 3 quarters, and then all those value guys on the Kings who are only good when they get blown out. So again, they 13 this year. I'm annoyed that I can't play because pretty sure that would have been a pretty easy win. Oubre is starting. The Wizards will start Wall, Beal, Oubre, Morris, and Howard. The Knicks will start their same Island of Misfit Toys ragtag group of guys they've been starting for the last few games. Let's talk about that game. Again, a DraftKings exclusive. Although I suppose Fantasy Draft has it. They do, I think. I'm not going to go look. I presume Fantasy Draft has this game as well. So the Knicks visiting the Wizards. So you have the Knicks who are like intentionally sort of scrubby and doing interesting things, and then the Wizards who are very unintentionally scrubby. Playing several very good basketball players, but just really, frankly, looking like total shit. I have a lot of interest in a number of guys in this game on DraftKings, checking out these prices here. I like Noah Vonleh a lot. He's been very, very, very good and was bad for exactly one game, and that was purely based on foul trouble, which is something he does struggle with. He's not super foul trouble guy. He's not Marquise Chris. He's not Jaren Jackson Jr., who we'll get to later, but he's... he's a bit handsy. But that's only going to cost him 1 game out of 4, 1 game out of 5. The rest of the time, he's $5,000 guy who has a pretty safe floor of 25, 27, 30. Generally is going to pull in that double-double for you. So I still like him. I don't hate him in cash. I like him legitimately in tournaments. Let's see, who else on this team? Mitchell Robinson at 4,100 makes some sense. That would be just tournaments for me. He's also very handsy. He has to deal with Dwight Howard, which is not necessarily a ton of fun. For only $1,800 more, I would much rather play Dwight Howard himself, although just eyeballing this for the first time. I've done all the basketball research. I haven't done all the site and pricing research. Did I know that Davis Bertans has a striking resemblance to Laffy? Okay. No, I didn't. There's someone else who has a striking... Mike Miller, former basketball player of the Nuggets at many other teams. Look up Mike Miller and then look at a picture of Laffy. It's like looking in a mirror if you're Laffy. Damian Dotson, I think, is strong. Also close to sort of the cash line at like $4,800. He's been gotten. I'm going to click on it. He's been gotten. You can tell when I don't have time to prepare a script. I'm not quite as glib as normal, but the minutes have been brilliant. Since the second game of the year when they started to shake things up, again, he did that off the bench, and then the third game of the year, I believe, maybe the fourth was when they went full bore, but his minutes the last 6 games are 31, 34, 29, 28, 31, 36. That's pretty exciting. He's shown he does have a very real upside. He put up a 40 in one of those games, a 30 in another of them, and I'm a believer in the matchup. That being a long way around of saying I am a believer that the Wizards basketball team is not good right now. I will get to the questions as soon as possible. If I feel like I'm lagging behind, I'll just jump into the premium chat and answer questions at the expense of handling the rest of the games. So, Dotson close to the cash line, Vonleh close to the cash line, Robinson close to the cash line just because there is a ceiling there, and he's really, really cheap, but probably other places I would rather punt in cash. Alonzo Trier has gotten like 25 minutes again each of the last 3 games, has managed to produce in those, again, just tournaments. I would rather all the other 3 guys I just spoke of because I feel a little more secure in the minutes allocation, but Alonzo Trier has sucked up a lot of the other bench minutes that were previously going to other guys like Lance Thomas, and he's completely eviscerated. Mario isn't getting his time anymore. Frank Ntilikina, has looked better since he's gotten into the starting unit, but it seems less likely to give you real upside game than almost any of those guys we already talked about. He's probably the most cashy of those guys. Flipping it over to the Wizards, the Bullets, sleeve of Wizard. All these guys look just fine in pretty exciting matchups here. Otto Porter is out, obviously. That helps everybody a little bit. It's largely a nominal move for Kelly Oubre. It makes him a little safer, but believe it or not, I think it probably actually pulls some upside off him. His usage can get up, damn near 30% or so when he's getting his bench role. Now he's in the start role. I don't think they're going to completely subsume John Wall and Bradley Beal shots to give them to him. So, sort of a mixed bag there, but a little safer there. You now get guys like Jeff Green and Austin Rivers and Tomas Satoransky as potential bench units. I would probably rank them based on the comments today that he wants to get Sato more time. Green, Satoransky, Rivers in the order that I'd like to play those guys in tournaments, and shot of achieving a real upside and how exactly I think the minutes are going to come out. But Markieff at 52, perfectly in play in what's still a very good matchup. Dwight Howard at 5,900. They've said no minutes limitation going forward. I believe he played exactly 20 minutes in the last game. I will check that. And was very good. 23 minutes, pardon me. 30 fantasy points. Look good. 7 of 8 from the field is generally better than you're going to get out of him, but 3 rebounds is generally worse than you're going to get out of him. So, 5,900. I like Dwight Howard. I don't like him as much as Joel Embiid or Karl Anthony Towns, but there's obviously some inherent money issues there. I slightly prefer Beal to Wall at 7,500 and 8,800 prices. They're both fine to play. They're probably both fine to play in cash. I think we can certainly hope that this game stays close. The Wizards don't look like they're blowing anyone out anytime soon, but these are the Knicks, so certainly I think the hope is there that this game stays reasonably close. Moving on and talking about the Nets and the 76ers, pretty similar over-under in this game, sitting in the mid-220s. Pretty similar line, too, believe it or not, with Philly only favored by 4. Take that, all you. The 76ers are the best team in the East, people. Vegas thinks you're full of shit. Let's take a look at some notes here and pricing. So again, one of 2 games that you only get on DraftKings, because reasons. Guys. So Embiid is in a monster spot, and they finally appropriately priced him. Like, he's like $1,200 more than LeBron, which is about right. Like, he was just underpriced to start the season. Bits of foul trouble, bits of blowouts, bits of other externalities, making it not quite as exciting as it could be otherwise. This is a monster spot. He is my highest scoring player on the slate. I imagine if I can't have Giannis, who would have been Isaac out, Simmons in. Well, that's perfect clusterfuck of... As I really would have liked Terrence Ross, which are scary words to say, if they had both been out. But still yet another guy. He now ranks right among those other guys. I'm going to have trouble ranking those guys, especially on short notice. Owundu starting. That's good. We can ignore him. That's good. T. Ross, I would still have some interest in, but he's going to rank right in there with all those other guys we're talking about. Looking at the 76ers, prices no longer exciting. Embiid, you are paying a premium. Once you get around 12K, you really need a game out of him. So fine to play because there is 70 whatever upside. Fine to fade because 11.8 is not a small number. He's 2,000 more than Simmons. He's 1 and change more than LeBron. Salt to taste. Obviously, I don't mind stacking this game and going back. So if you are going to play Embiid, I really like playing Karis LeVert or D'Angelo Russell. I don't know if I'd like playing Jared Allen at that point, because now I'm trying to envision a game that stays close, but Embiid is a monster and Jared Allen doesn't foul out. That's a limited number of games there. But I try to run it back with at least one of those 2 super guards if I am paying the nut on Joel Embiid there. Sarge has looked like hot garbage. He's missed layups. He's missed open threes. I've seen just about every minute he's played on the court this year, and he's been bad. Like, he has not gotten to 20 fantasy points, apparently, in 5 consecutive games. That does not surprise me, having watched him play basketball. Don't play him next to Embiid, and even in tournaments, you'd have to really want... Again, I watched him put up what had to be 40 fantasy points against the Nets last year live, and I'm not doing it, but 5,000 is obviously a very nominal price, but don't play him alongside Embiid. They cannibalize each other significantly, and by that I mean Embiid is such a monster that Sarge can't get his. I don't really want to pay 6,200 for Bob Covington. Certainly had at least, one monster in this matchup last year, and it's Bob Covington. He can always get to 40 through some combination of steals and threes, but again, you're really needing this game to stay close. Fultz at 53, just tournaments, knock yourselves out. Simmons at 98, you can probably play in just about everything. This does seem like a spot he could very possibly pull another triple-double out of his ass. coming off a pretty pedestrian game, so the ownership will be nicely negatively reduced there, and a strong matchup for him. So I legit like Simmons quite a bit in tournaments. Cash, I'm guessing you can do better, but again, I'm working through this. We're doing this together here. And I should say that in general, I'm a full disclosure kind of guy. I did all my research last night. I caught up on everything today. I then went out for a few hours, and I'm doing this sort of on the fly. So full disclosure, I'm less confident in my analysis today than I normally am, which seems only a fair thing to mention there. So take that with a grain of salt if it in any way affects what you're doing here. I like D'Angelo Russell a lot in tournaments. He's $5,700 on the only site you can play him on. That's wicked cheap. It's obviously risky as hell. We've seen him getting low 20s in minutes recently. Kenny has indicated it's not any kind of permanent benching or reduction, and it's a spot in which I believe he was really good last year. I'm not going to take the time to look it up because we're 25 minutes from lock. But I like D'Angelo Russell in tournaments. I will leave it at that. I would slightly rather play him than Karis LeVert in tournaments. In cash, if you needed me to play a guy, it'd probably be Karis LeVert. Other than that, looking at these prices, you could still Dinwiddie. You could still Rondé Hollis-Jefferson. You could still Crabbe at $3,700. I'm not thrilled with any of those options. Probably Dinwiddie, my favorite of them, though. And you can obviously play Karis LeVert. They will focus on him a little bit. But $6,800 is still too cheap for the kind of scores he's been putting out. He's got 40-plus in the last couple, and I think 30-plus a few times recently as well. So he's been pretty consistent for what we expected out of LeVert. So $6,800 is still a little cheap there. I really couldn't object to him in any format. 7 p.m. games. Magic visiting the Spurs. Hey, FanDuel. Thanks for joining. So we have our Orlando news. Thank you for passing that on. Whomever passed that on, I will go real quick and confirm that. Magic will start Augustine, Fournier, Iwundu, Gordon, and Vooch. Simmons available off the bench. Isaac not playing. All right. So, compile that. Yeah. So, Jonathan Isaac isn't playing. Fournier is still pretty cheap. We don't love a matchup with San Antonio, but they certainly don't have the uber wing defenders in the past that would make me overly concerned with this. Augustine is basically a cash punt. I'd probably look across the ball on FanDuel and save $100 and play Bryn Forbes, or play Patty Mills if you think that happens 2 games in a row. But slightly prefer that to Augustine. Certainly in tournaments where Augustine doesn't really carry a ton of upside with him at any time. Minutes locked in the 20s. Other guys getting a lot of usage. 5s for Fournier is great. You can certainly play him in tournaments. You could probably play him in cash. Again, I'm top of my heading a lot of who's available at what position tonight, but $5,800 for Evan Fournier seems like it probably sits pretty well in cash. Aaron Gordon is obviously just tournaments. The last game was really, 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 really unimpressive. Put mildly, failed to get 10 fantasy points. I imagine he hasn't done that in quite some time, but again, this year has 2 games of 45 and north and another of 50 and north. There's a very real upside there, and you're going to get a guy with 50-point upside at $6,400 at like 9% owned. Shouldn't have to say much more than that to you. It is not a matchup which is overly difficult in that situation. Vooch, similarly, I doubt he would be my cash center tonight, though he wouldn't be far away from that line. He is $8,200 on DK. He is $9,000 on FanDuel. Yeah, that's about appropriately priced. He's no longer the bargain he was earlier this year. He has been contract year pushing the shit out of it. Certainly no issue with him if he works into your tournament lineup. I'll try to come back and get to some position by position later to compare him to people relatively. And if I'm going off the bench, Mo Bamba's still under 4K, so for the block upside and stuff, that works on DraftKings if you're just firing a tournament bullet. And Terrence Ross, with Isaac out, I don't think picks up much of an extra role. You're just going to get Iwundu slotting in and playing most of those minutes. Don't play Wes Iwundu. We had a Dorian Finney-Smith game already this year. Last night we got wicked Patty Mills game, although that's not quite as rare, but I'll put it this way. Wes Iwundu played 31 minutes last game and had 9 fantasy points. You need a lot of things to break your way for that to work. If he was like 3K and you needed a 3K in your lineup, I can see the scenario in which I would put Wes Iwundu in a lineup, but you'd need to really want it. Again, Bryn Forbes at 4K on FanDuel, especially where you can drop a price, is pretty compelling for me. Anytime anyone's cheaper there than they are on DK, generally an indicator they're a little too cheap, and he's a little too cheap. Yesterday, in lieu of Patty Mills really putting his thing down, he had his second worst game of the year, which was 19.7 fantasy points, which, you know, like if that's your floor where you're getting 20 for 4K, that's a pretty sexy floor. Hasn't gotten to 30 yet this year, but game 22, 24, 23, 22, 23, 15... 21-20. I'm not super excited about it, but certainly it seems reasonably cashy, and this is certainly a spot where you could get something extra out of him. Rudy Gay is out, I believe I read. That makes things interesting. That makes me like... I mean, those minutes are going to get spread all the hell over the place. So, it's a little good for Dante Cunningham. It's a little good for Patty Mills. It's a little good for Pau Gasol, who they will randomly roll out there for 30 minutes once in a while, and this is a spot I don't hate him in. It's a little good for Marco Bellinelli. Without the ability to go back and check some specific game logs and predict the rotation, I'm very confident that the Spurs are not going to be a spot where all of a sudden, one guy suddenly kicks it off and gets a massive amount of usage. So, it is slightly good news also for Aldridge and DeRozan. Aldridge is too cheap. DeRozan is now at least appropriately priced on DraftKings. 10K is a big nut to ask for DeMar DeRozan. 8,900 on DK. Yeah, that can work. And Aldridge at 81 and 78 is very solid. You could certainly play him in cash just about anywhere. And another compelling center on DraftKings where he has that eligibility. I'll come back to it in questions if there's more. Let's move on to Memphis and Phoenix. Let me grab the rare game log as they played last week. I was with Booker out, though, so there's not going to be a lot referential I can pull out of there to do a lot to help anyone. News here, still no JaMychal Green, still no Chandler Parsons. Those are the relevant things I need to know there. I still like Jaren Jackson Jr. in tournaments. He's 5,500. He can do absolutely everything. He has... I'm going to look at his game log here. If I shriek like a little girl, I apologize. It's... oh, God, the personal fouls. Jesus, man. You gotta calm down. Don't touch other people that much. Yeah, personal fouls. 5-4, 5-6, 4-5. The last 6 games. That's a lot of fouls, especially when last 3 of those games with 5-4 and 5 fouls came in 20, 10, and 15 minutes. So I hesitantly recommend him in GPPs. If he stays out of foul trouble, he should play 30 minutes, and 30 minutes against the Suns would conceivably construe some significant number of fantasy points, and his ownership should be well down because he's doing the Josh Jackson thing of never being good. Unlike Josh Jackson, I do think he has that club in the bag, but it's worth pointing out he played the Suns all of a week ago and played 15 minutes and had 5 personal fouls. 15 fantasy points in those 15 minutes, but 5 fouls. So, yeah. Gotta want it, but worth considering in tournaments, especially on FanDuel, where he's priced a little more advantageously on only 100 more than DK. And you dropped the lowest score, which it's got to make you excited to talk about playing a guy for 5,500 and drop the lowest score in the same sentence. Conley and Gasol have largely been carrying the water for this team, especially in difficult matchups. We go back and look at this last game, which was a blowout, by the way. They played in Memphis that time, though, but Memphis got him by 21. You only got 31 minutes out of Gasol, 40 fantasy points. 28 minutes out of Conley, 31 fantasy points. Yep, that's if this game stays close, they're probably good for 40 and 45. I would like Gasol for a couple more. If this game blows out, they're still probably good for 30 and 35. Looking at their prices on various sites, Conley, again, cheaper on FanDuel. That's usually an indicator of someone being a little too cheap. Kind of cashy. Not the guy you frequently expect 55 out of, and at 7,800 there are other guys we can pretend for a larger upside, but makes some sense. Shelvin Mack. If Shelvin Mack is in, he's still very playable as a guy who gets very significant minutes at backup point. He frequently gets 24, sometimes something like 30 minutes, which is insane, and can do stuff with them. If we look at this last game where they played Phoenix, he actually played few minutes for him in that game, 15 and a half, and had 19 or 20 fantasy points. So I wouldn't do it. I would play no Shelvin Mack because I'm fading the possible 30. It correlates better with blowout. So if don't play Conley, don't play Gasol, I guess you could conceivably play Ayton, who's going to play significantly in a blowout, but don't play Conley or Gasol with Mac. But you can play Sheldon Mack in a tournament. I certainly don't hate it. And again, their bench minutes, their usage of Dylan Brooks and Wayne Selden and all that is querulous and quixotic at best. The rest of the starters, you have Garrett Temple, you have Kyle Anderson. They would both be tournament plays for me. Be warned, this was the matchup in which I really liked Kyle Anderson last week, and his performance nearly led me back to drinking after many years off the wagon. On the wagon? On the wagon. Minus points for correct idiom usage for me. But, Kyle Anderson should be good in this matchup for $4,500, $4,300. But this was the game where he played 20 to 22 minutes, took only 4 shots. They benched him after 4 minutes because he missed like a 3-footer and 2 layups and just wandered around like he had suffered head trauma or something for the entirety of the game. It was an unimpressive performance, to say the least, by Kyle Anderson last time. But he's cheap, and I don't think it was the Suns' stellar defense that locked him down, so I don't think game to game we need to worry about that too much. I would probably rather play Garrett Temple. But both those guys, basically just tournament plays for me. Though, again, they're cheap, and it's the Suns, so if you had a cash lineup and they slotted in, there's a lot of other wings out there I really like tonight. I have a feeling I'd rather see, a Kogi or Dotson, but it's a little site-dependent. Looking across the ball, I'm trying, guys, I'm trying. God, this is too hard to do too quick. Whiteside listed questionable for Monday. Okay. Pretty sure you just benched him because he was terrible, but other than Whiteside, yesterday went almost perfect, by the way. I was like, just don't play anyone in that Cleveland game. That worked out. Just don't play anyone in Utah and Denver. That worked out. Like, a lot of people did well yesterday. Nets starting who we thought they would, which is they're keeping Dudley there, so a little less excitement for Rondé Hollis Jefferson, who they should really get back in there at some point soon. I don't know what they think they're going to get out of Milk Dud there. News. All news we expected. Tweets. Angry people. Things. Okay, back to where we were because we are running out of time. We'll pick it up in questions if necessary. Going to Minnesota and Portland. Again, one of the games we're a little more excited about. Derrick Rose, I believe current news is Butler out, Teague out, Rose probable. So this is a bit of a clusterfuck. So you have Tyus Jones, who has now priced himself up to near 5K, who 2 games ago was late scratch, post-lock scratch. And that was a great thing for a lot of people following the show, but it's still very annoying for a whole lot of people. Butler gone. So number one, love Towns. You can play Towns in just about anything. I like the matchup with Nurk. I like the matchup with the Trailblazers. I like the non-Butler there. And in games Jimmy Butler hasn't played this year, Karl-Anthony Towns has been good. #analysis. So I like Towns. Wiggins, would really rather have 5-something Wiggins than 6-something Wiggins. But certainly playable in tournaments. I don't think he makes a cash line. He's priced almost identically to CJ McCollum, who I'd like a little bit more in cash. Tyus Jones is probably just tournaments for me at a hair under 5,000. If you showed up in your cash lineup, I wouldn't hate it, but he did miss just a game and a half. Like the issue with Tiggins? The issue with Rose and Tyus is they both just missed games for foot issues. Rose left the last game after, I think it was 5 or 6 minutes. And, he was questionable earlier today. Now he's back to probable, but his price is up to 6 and 5.5. Derrick Rose in a tournament? Sure. I think we've proven he has a really significant upside. But I'm not super comfortable where I don't expect him to start now. And, the minutes could be a little limited due to the injury. And maybe the game goes sideways. He's certainly going to be one of the first guys out of there. I didn't talk about, this is also the front end of a back-to-back. Let me pull up my back-to-back notes because this seems like something I should point out. This is the back end of a back-to-back for the Lakers, the 76ers, the Trailblazers, and the Spurs. This is the front end for the Grizzlies, the Timberwolves, the Knicks, the Magic, and the Raptors. So 9 teams playing back-to-backs out of our modest 12-game slate here. No rest on Sundays even for the Wicked. So Josh Okogie is a little too expensive on FanDuel, $5,600, not a number we really want to pay, but he is a guy who does pick up defensive stats, and so he could get there. So I wouldn't entirely expurgate Josh Okogie from my tournament lineups on FanDuel, but certainly not someone I'm windmill slamming. $4,400 on DK, I legit like in tournaments. I like the spot for him. I think he goes lower owned than Tyus Jones. So, yeah. What else should we say? Taj is down to 4,100 on DK without looking. I think he's missed 20 fantasy points like once this year and gotten to 30 a couple of times. 4,100 is a really small number. Just want to point that out there. Cheap. A little bit more cashy, but cheap. I'm just going to go across the ball. If I missed anything, I'll try to pick it up in questions. Lillard at 92 to 97. Yeah, good matchup. These teams, they play in the same conference, same division. Got down 4 times last year. One time the Timberwolves blew them out. The other 3 were competitive games. Lillard was good for mid-40s to mid-50s in all of those games, 97, 90, 200. No issue with that. $6,100 McCollum I actually like a lot in this spot, so I'm fine with McCollum in anything on DK. FanDuel, I'd have to look at how the other guys are priced, and I don't want to guess offhand. Aminu's up to 5,100. Been good the last few games. No issue with you playing Aminu in tournaments. Certainly a guy who can shoot 1 for 10, so I'm a little nervous in cash. Nurkic is a very strong tournament play and a very bad cash play. He might end up playing 17 minutes here. Without looking, he had fractious minutes, we will generously say, against this squad last year, against Towns last year. Same coaches in this situation. I imagine you could very possibly see some of the same if he doesn't get it going. And again, he's on a back-to-back. But I recall Ed Davis getting significant time repeatedly last year, so I'd be a little nervous there. Turner's up over 5K. Really not terribly interested in him in that price. Zach Collins, obviously good. Ed Davis is out of town, and if I don't think this is necessarily the best spot for Nurk, 4,300 on DK makes some sense. And again, all the upside in the world for 4,300. So somehow, again, in tournaments, I like Collins and Nurkic, which feels like something that should happen less often than it appears to be happening for me. Moving on to what I certainly hope is the last game. Toronto visiting the Lakers. Lakers on their back end of a back-to-back. Kawhi, I believe, is still questionable. I don't think he'll play. They were going to sit him either today or tomorrow. And if he's not 100% after his ankle, I think, after injuring himself in the Phoenix game, if he's not 100%, they got to sit him one day anyway. Why not make it today? So just applying some common sense, which when you're talking about NBA coaches is a somewhat dubious proposal, that they'll sit Kawhi tonight when he's a little banged up as opposed to tomorrow, which would seem odd to do that. So I imagine Kawhi sits. Because I imagine Kawhi sits, I think you get some nice ownership on Pascal Siakam if you want to pay up for it. It's just tournaments at 5 and 5/8, and because Leonard may play, but certainly something you can pivot into. Danny Green, generally we like more with Kawhi out there, as has been pointed out to me many times by my excellent co-host Josh Engelman. Still 4,400 on DK for his performance thus far this year in what is expected to be a pretty nice matchup. That's exciting, and I think the real place you try to go here is Kyle Lowry, who I think will go under-owned for the kind of savagery upside he actually has here. Probably not cash, probably just tournaments, because, again, for no good reason, but Kawhi might play. He might be 100%, and he might say, yeah, I'd rather play this game and get out there and see some Braun. I miss him. So it's possible Kawhi plays, and it's possible that wouldn't be a stupid thing to do if he's literally 100%. But if he's even 90% today and he's got to play today or tomorrow, haven't played tomorrow at 100%. Anyway, Valanciunas, always in tournaments. Priced very similarly to Ibaka. I imagine we see a bit more J-Val out here tonight, so I think I slightly prefer J-Val over Ibaka. Both would be just tournaments for me. Looking across the ball at the Lakers, Lonzo Balls. That's 3 single-digit fantasy point performances in his last 4 games. I think that's going to be off limits until we see something a little better out of Lonzo there. BI is down to 5,100 on DK. I don't hate that. That's fine in tournaments. Again, LeBron's down to 10.6 on DK. That's just a little too cheap for him. Like his just profiled point distribution, just in general, is pretty nice there. And again, I don't think Kawhi plays. Kawhi in tournaments, if he plays then. I would not play Kawhi on like FanDuel right now. He's still 10K something. The matchup is obviously ideal, but if you can switch into him, like I was a big fan of switching into Anthony Davis last night. That did not work, but Anthony Davis was 4% owned. Anthony Davis could be playing the 1992 Dream Team, and I would probably want 4% Anthony Davis because there's still some chance he gets 85 and is the highest scoring player on the slate by 29, and you just win. So absolutely yesterday was the right thing to be ready to switch into Anthony Davis and to do so when he played, and did not work for you. but you should have done it. And if you didn't, you should have a very good reason why. Like, was really surprising to me. Like, he was literally 4% on, 5% on in most tournaments. On DraftKings, I'm referring to, where you can swap. That seems great for people who did it. So that, one time, like, that will screw you like it did one time out of 6. And not really matter that much 4 times out of 6. And then 6 times out of 6, you put yourself in a massive winning position where he's the highest scoring player on the slate. And you got him at 4%. So Kawhi, not quite Anthony Davis, but still a guy with a massive upside who is going to be incredibly low owned with the uncertainty. Aminu or Markieff, I'm probably just going to play... Well, that's interesting. Sorry, I'm trying to figure out how the Wizards are going to balance that rotation now. So he'll probably go there. 26. I'll take barely Aminu in cash and barely Markieff in tournaments, but no strong preference towards either one in either situation there. JaVale McGee is still too cheap on DraftKings. Picture that. Feel free. This doesn't match up. Not really mattering where he's in the 6Ks. Still not playing Rondo. Josh Hart still, especially on FanDuel in tournaments, makes a fair bit of sense. I'm going to start looking at questions in the premium chat now and backing. Holy moly. Got about 5 minutes for this. Temple in a GPP is just fine. Marco Bellinelli or Shelvin Mack is Marco Bellinelli for me by a significant margin. Could you stack Okogie and Cat? Absolutely. Kawhi in tournaments, if he plays then, I think it's a great late swap, yes. Especially that late at night. Now, I think you have to build your lineup with LeBron in it to make that work without being a giant pain in the ass. But for all the people who have LeBron in their lineup, put him in the utility spot if you can. If you have another small forward or power forward. Or if you have another eligible small forward and power forward. And forward, I guess. But put him in forward or utility if you can. And be ready to make that pivot. If Leonard's like, yeah, I'm playing, I'm 100% and there's no news of minutes limitations. I still like LeBron a little more raw points. Like 60-40. But you're going to have LeBron at 28% owned and Kawhi at 7% owned. And that's pretty exciting. LeBron or Embiid at their prices is probably still LeBron and cash and Embiid in tournaments for me. Okogie and Fultz or Tyus and Dotson in a DK GPP. That's very close for me. Haven't had time to do like full minute out projections today. And I will punt on your question because I don't like to make up answers when I don't have a strong one. I like all 4 of those guys in tournaments. I think that's just fine. Who do I like the most on DK and cash? Cat, Wall, Okogie. Of those 3 guys, Cat's the only one who I'm jumping up and down on and saying, let me play in cash. I like Marc Gasol in cash. I like CJ McCollum in cash. I like Karl Anthony Towns in cash. Don't mind Vonleh. I'm trying to think of other guys who I was like, yeah, cash. But, Wall, that team looks like shit. Like, I don't want to, I don't want to pick a fight. But that team looks like shit. So I'm a little nervous about spending John Wall money. I think it's an excellent tournament play. I think there's all the upside in the world. But if you're saying, like I would rather spend the, 600 extra for Lillard? I'll spend the 600 extra for Lillard. Like the odds that Lillard gets me 40, I would put it like 90%. Maybe a little higher. The odds that Wall gets me 40, I would put it like 75% or something. So just to minimize my downside. In cash, I would try to find a way to play Lillard over Wall, for example. Other questions. Gasol or Beal in a DraftKings tournament? If I have no other Wizards of consequence, and again, keep in mind, FanDuel doesn't lock for another hour, so just be focusing on your DraftKings lineups. If I have no other Wizards of consequence, I will slightly prefer Bradley Beal. But on many situations, give me some of that other guy there. And let's see, looking for questions. I'll pop over to the YouTube channel as we've gone dry there. Booker a lock? No, I don't think Booker's a lock. Now, I think Booker is in a very reasonable spot. He just runs out there and takes 1,000 shots. Whenever his price is in the 7s, that's a little too cheap. He should be in a vacuum like an 8,500, 8,800 player, and I should have spoken about him more specifically. So there's all the upside in the world. I like him in tournaments. I don't hate him in cash in that sort of Zach LaVine way. But the matchup is really, really bad. So you need him to really excel in a bad matchup, which has happened. Again, his 70-point game came against Boston. And there's, though Avery Bradley was out that day, which helped a little bit. But stuff. Taj and CJ or Bellinelli and Aaron Gordon on FanDuel. Tournaments I would play Aaron Gordon and Bellinelli. Favorite cheap center DraftKings for GPPs. Jared Allen is certainly playable at $5,000. We're about down to 80 seconds, so I'll just answer this one question as best I can. Jared Allen at 5K. Valanciunas at 5.6. I'll count that as cheap. Mitchell Robinson at 4.1 are your primary suspects. One tier below that, I would have Pau Gasol and Mo Bamba. Any Isaiah Canaan love or early die versus Conley defense? Well, I mean, that's your concern. He was good last game. He played 30 minutes and had like 30 fantasy points. Like, Canaan was I'm looking it up, very solid in his last matchup. Yeah, against Toronto, he had 24 fantasy points. Played 32 minutes. So you can do it, but I don't feel great about it in cash, and there's all these other cheap, point guards who I think are a little bit lower owned in better spots that I would rather play in tournaments. So, feel free. He's 30 whatever the hell 100, but it's certainly not a spot I love. So you're asking me if I have any love. No time for love, Dr. Jones. Bellinelli or Mac Bellinelli for me. Garrett Temple or Joe Harris, GPP, DK, Temple. Between those guys. Jared Jackson, protection. I don't know what that means. Like, will I offer you insurance because the dealer has 11, that sort of thing? You're playing him in cash, you don't know about your life. That is balls. That is cojones, my friend. Kanan on FanDuel, you can do it again. I've explained my reticence. Green Toronto on DK, yeah, absolutely. $4,400 for Danny Green. You can play in just about anything you want to. We like him more with Kawhi in there. They have a nice rapport, but feel free, certainly. You're smashing Howard. Okay, well, he's a big guy. I don't know if he's going to put up for that, but be gentle when you're smashing Howard. Worst rebounding percentage in the league, and that makes a huge difference. I don't know who we're talking about there. Eddie made me hurry to swap in my FanDuel lineups. Well, I'm sure they have some sort of 6 p.m. slate, but their main slate is 7. So, will Moutier get minutes? I'll guess Moutier get minutes again, but Ntilikina was my 4th favorite Nick, and I'm not playing Trey Burke, and I'm not playing Emmanuel Moutier, so yes, some of your concern if you are playing Ntilikina is that his minutes are adversely affected by the fact that Jean-Baptiste Emmanuel Moutier can steal some of the time. Bellinelli and Dante Cunningham both on FanDuel, too risky for GPP. Yes, and that they don't correlate that well either. Like, I like Bellinelli a lot. I think the upside is there, and the ownership is minuscule at 1.1% or something like that. Cunningham just scored 35 fantasy points yesterday, and that's just not something that happens really frequently. So, like, you're really pushing your luck. Like, Rudy Gay being out's exciting. But I'm trying not to play Dante Cunningham today. Just like I was trying not to play Juancho Hernan-Gomez last game. Just like I was like, when guys get 10, 11 games in a row and then get 35 one game, you need some pretty compelling reason for me to think the 35 is coming again and not the 10. Daddy like? Oh, all right. Daddy will like some things. Let's take a look at some ownership here on these. We get both the DK special games. Let us see on DraftKings, the only place it matters for this particular question, what the ownership was on these fine people. And then I'll handle questions for a little while longer because there are obviously many games to late swap in and out of. And various other things there. So the 200K excellent 8s on DraftKings. Just looking at the lineup my buddy has put in here. You have 32% Kelly Oubre. Like, I would want to be under on that. I'm fine with it. May turn out well. It projects fine. But, Dotson is 9%. I'm a little more excited about 9% Damian Dotson than 32% Kelly Oubre. Noah Vonleh is 12%. I'm a little more excited about 12% Noah Vonleh than 32% Kelly Oubre. So, certainly no reason to feel bad about it, and chalk hits every day. But as you may have guessed, highest owned player on the slate, Kelly Oubre at 32%. Second highest owned player on the slate, D12, Dwight Howard, 25%. Karis LeVert, 16%. Tim Hardaway Jr., 15%. Didn't specifically mention him. Which I would normally feel bad about, except for the fact there's almost nothing to say. Like, he constantly projects in that, again, very Zach LaVine-like role. He's a little cheaper, but a little less ridiculous usage, a little less general scoring. And so he's a guy who's going to take a pile of shots. He's generally going to get you 30. If he has a shit shooting night, he's going to get you 20. If he has a great shooting night, he's going to get you 40. You got 42 the last time I recommended him at 6,800. Prices come up a few hundred more dollars. The only other time this year he was super valuable was the game he randomly picked up 3 steals and blocks, and for Tim Hardaway Jr., that is fairly random when that happens. So was he playable in a tournament? Sure, he could have the good shooting day and pick up steals and blocks, but like he really needs the steals and blocks to do anything that you're super excited with at the 7,300 I think he was at. So I had very little to say on Tim Hardaway Jr., but I didn't say it at all. John Wall, 13.7%, that's fine. Brad Beal, 12.5%, that's fine. Noah Vonleh, 12%, daddy like. Joel Embiid at 11%, you have to like. Again, that price was very, very high, but I haven't projected for 59. That's it's an incredible spot. Dotson, 9%. Russell, 9%. Higher than I would have thought. Simmons, 8%. I like that a lot. Embiid has a couple good games, and Simmons has a shit game, and people forget that, he has pretty good upside himself, too. Mitchell Robinson, 6%. Daddy would have liked that. Frank Ntilikina, 6%. Jared Allen, 6%. Rondé Hollis Jefferson, 5.3. Saric, 5%. Oh, ye faithful. 4.5% for Joe Harris. 4% for Markieff. Only 4% for Covington. Yeah, price is up. So, 3.5% for Dinwiddie. 3.33% for Redick. 3.2% for Muscala, 2.5% for Enes Kanter, who I think does have a right to be pissed. He looked great. Like, you can change around the lineup without wholesale changing around the fucking lineup. Like, you left Tim Hardaway Jr. in there. The smart lineup they should have run was you leave Kanter in there, too. You want to start Ntilikina? Fine. Get some youth and some defense. You want to start Dotson? No problem. You want to start Vonleh? Great. But their best lineup and the lineup they should be running, even with this ideological theory they're running, would have been Ntilikina, Hardaway, Dotson, Vonleh, and Kanter. Pulling Kanter out of there for Mitchell Robinson, who I like a lot, is crazy. Like, give Mitchell Robinson 18 minutes a light and give no one else center minutes. That's fine. But let Kanter play his 30 minutes. He was demolishing, and is a great team guy. The locker room likes him. The city likes him. So if I was Enes Kanter, I'd be a little pissed there. Ed Davis, 2.3%. Certainly an argument for Ed Davis I didn't bring up in that they just could need his body size with Embiid craziness. I will come back to those questions in just a second. I'm just, Daddy is liking and disliking some things. 2% Jeff Green, sure. 2% Fultz. I like that. Alan Crabb, 2%. Jared Dudley, 0.8%. Friends don't let friends play Jared Dudley. 0.7 on Austin Rivers. 0.6 on Emmanuel Mudiay, 0.4 on Trey Burke, 0.4 on Mario Hezonja, 0.32 on Otto Porter Jr. Congratulations, you played yourself. Honorable mention, 0.24 for Tomas Satoransky. I like Tomas Satoransky at 0.24. Coach says he wants to get him more minutes, and again, my usual response to that is, you don't have to just want him to. You can just do it. It's your choice. You can just give him more minutes. You could start him tonight if you wanted. You could start him at center. Apparently, they think Davis Bertans Fantasy Labs reporting is likely to start for the injured Rudy Gay on Sunday. That wouldn't surprise me. Also, for those of you who mentioned Dante Cunningham love, he also not that young of a buck anymore, and is on a back-to-back and played like 38 minutes last night or some absolutely crazy number. Like, he was going off, and they're like, oh, we'll let the kid play. But I'm gonna go look at. I think this is my friend's account to whom I said, if I were you, I would play Dante Cunningham here, and he did, and see if it lists. So yeah, 34 fantasy points at 1% owned. Again, lifetime achievement. Correctly tout Dante Cunningham, checked off. So yeah, the 3 games preceding this one, he played 26, 26, and 26 minutes. There's a trend there for those of you not inclined towards mathematics. He tends to play about 26 minutes. In those 3 games, had 12.25, 12.5, and 11.75 fantasy points. For those of you not inclined towards mathematics, there's a further trend there. We'll call that a multivariable trend, where he tends to play about 26 minutes and score about 12 fantasy points. Last night played 38 minutes and scored 34 fantasy points. So, yeah. I don't think he's getting 30 fantasy points again tonight, so I'll look other places. I would rather play Davis Bertans. It would not surprise me if he did not play. I would rather play Pau Gasol. I would rather play Marco Bellinelli. I would rather do those things. Alright, so I'm going to go back and look at some questions, and we will play out the string that way. Can you give your Raptors take if Kawhi is out? I missed it. I really like Kyle Lowry. Hashtag obvious, but yeah, no reason to think that he can't be exceptional here. Keeps the game, I think, a little more assuredly close. So I like Kyle Lowry quite a bit. I like Pascal Siakam at 5.8 and 5 flat. Even though those are bigger numbers than I want to play. He obviously crushed 3,900 the last couple times there was no Kawhi, but he also would have crushed 5K. Danny Green will call it a nominal change because he has some very strong positive correlation with Kawhi. You would like to think you're looking at a couple extra minutes, couple extra shots without him, but the strong correlation between their successes and playing together has been pointed out to me. Also, 4,400 on DK for Danny Green is objectively too cheap. He has looked excellent this year. Other takes. I'm still not playing OG Anunoby, just not involved enough. He has games where he plays 25 minutes and takes a shot. I would rather play Dante Cunningham, and that's saying quite something. I like J-Val. I like J-Val more if Kawhi is out, and I expect him to be out. I like Ibaka fine, but I like J-Val more than Ibaka today for tournaments. If I had to play one of those two guys in cash, I would rather play Serge. He makes it with a lemon twist. Wiggins on FanDuel at 6,600. Sure. I don't want to do it in cash. I believe he's a small forward there, not a shooting guard, as he should be. And small forward is real shit over there. So taking that into account, I'm probably more of a fan. And again, I think you're looking at... you're looking at the normal slate because it hasn't started yet. Yeah, small forward on FanDuel is sticky. You have 12K LeBron, Kawhi, who I don't think will play, Rudy Gay, who will not play, Andrew Wiggins at 6,600, TJ Warren, who might play. I think he missed a practice and it's his back, so I don't really want to play him either way. I've talked about this extensively. I don't know what happened last game, but people going into the last game were like, what about TJ Warren? I'm like, what about TJ Warren? He's playing fucking Toronto, and Kawhi is in and Devin Booker is in, and I want absolutely nothing to do with that play, and he was bad. So even if he wasn't possibly missing the game, I hope TJ Warren is out because there's other guys there that you can consider playing then. You can play Bridges, makes an interesting sort of value punt there, and Josh Jackson would be in play in tournaments at that point. A couple extra minutes for Ariza. There's things you can do. I think I like McCall Bridges more at that point, but I don't want to play TJ Warren. So, yeah, again, so small forward is LeBron at 12. Okay. Wiggins at 6.6, which is who you're asking about. Gay, who's out, Leonard, who's out, Isaac, who's out, Warren, who I don't want to play even if he isn't out, and is quite possibly out, Evan Turner, who's at his highest price of the year at $5,200, who you can play on, again, a shitty small forward site. Trevor Ariza, Lance Stevenson, Kyle Anderson, McCall Bridges, Luol Deng, Dante Cunningham. It's fucking ugly. So, yeah, Andrew Wiggins is a tremendous play in small forward on FanDuel, but not because he's a tremendous play. Oh, the messages. Siakam or JJJ? Yeah, certainly Siakam in cash. It's probably Siakam in tournaments as well. Just because, your theory with Triple J is, okay, if he doesn't get in foul trouble, the matchup is exceptional, and at only, $5,500 on FanDuel, he can put up, 40 maybe, conceivably. And that's, that's not certainly a thing that is certain to happen. But he did put up 42 in the second game this year in only 27 minutes versus Atlanta. And again, if you want to look at, a reason to think that he might be able to be productive here, while he was shit last time against Phoenix, the other times that he managed to be reasonably productive were in the better matchups. His best two scoring games this year were against Atlanta and against Sacramento. So in theory, when, he can run for what's blocked, I'll put it that way. So, but Pascal, we know, can do it. He's gotten 40 fantasy points 2 out of the last 3 games. Kawhi came back, didn't get it, but 2 games ago and 3 games ago, played 33 minutes, had 48 and 42 FanDuel points. And it's not like he's going to be owned tonight on FanDuel, even on DK, not necessarily. So, I think it's definitely Siakam on DK where you can ensure that Kawhi is out and you're saving $400 over Triple J. On FanDuel, it's a little interesting, much closer there. But good question. McGee or Cat on FanDuel cash? Just a really complicated question. It sounds like a simple question, just compare these two guys for who you would rather play in cash. But you only get one center spot, and it's really related to how much value and exceptional play there is at other positions that you really have to get in on. So when I think about FanDuel and the lineups I would likely build for cash, I don't think there are a lot of super spend up cheap options. And what I mean by that is the guys I'm like, I really want to play, none of them are like LeBron on DK, for example. LeBron on DK should be in your cash lineup. On FanDuel, Conley was too cheap. And LaMarcus Aldridge was too cheap. But other than that, it's a lot of guys who are 4K, 5K. And so I'm thinking my answer is that it's Karl Anthony Towns without Jimmy Butler. Probably. So I'm going to say Karl Anthony Towns to answer your question. I think he is, in a vacuum, the better FanDuel cash play. But it has something to do with whether or not you want to spend up at center, which makes you look at all the other positions. But generally, I think Cat would be my answer to that somewhat vague question. Fred VanVleet, oh god, I have no idea what the hell's going on with the injury situation there right now. I gotta be honest, I can tell Fred VanVleet from DeLon Wright in a lineup, but they've been alternatingly present and absent and present and absent. So give me a second to look exactly what's going on with these guys. I think they're both back end fine. I think they're basically all hands on deck, excepting possibly Kawhi. But let me confirm a couple things here, and then my guess is I think Fred VanVleet will be an absolutely fine tournament play. You hope Kawhi is out, obviously, and you hope they blow them out. But yeah. I mean, that's going to be my answer. You want to put VanVleet in the lineup? Great. Pascal Siakam or Aminu Cash if Kawhi sits. Siakam. Well, once you take Kawhi out of there, Siakam is an incredibly good play. And Cash definitely has a much safer... I mean, even with Aminu being... or even with Leonard being alternatingly in and out of the lineup, I'm inclined to think, and I have him up on FanDuel, so I'll look here, but there have been 2 games he got very few minutes. I would have to look up the reasons why. But the last 5 games for Siakam on FanDuel were 28, 23, 48, 42, and 21. The 21 was partially the blowout against Phoenix, so I do think Pascal, if Kawhi is out, is certainly a much safer option than Al-Farouq Aminu, who just sort of at random disappears. Looking for more questions, and I will get to the YouTube as soon as I empty the premium Slack here. I will spend some time on the YouTube. So if you're pounding something out there, I will take a look at it in a second. Is there anybody I like on FanDuel? Yes, I legit like Mike Conley at his price on FanDuel in any format. I legit like LaMarcus Aldridge at his price in any format. I legit like Karl Anthony Towns. I would have trouble getting away from him on both sides just because there is a real possibility of like 60, and it's really hard for me to think he flakes Sans Butler at getting 40, and not the biggest, not the best slate. That's a pretty safe floor. I feel pretty good about that. Again, the Sans Butler games he got, I don't know, I'm trying to remember, but Butler has missed. I believe Butler has missed 3 games this year, or there have been 3 games Cat played without. I'm gonna look this up. I don't like guessing, and I would rather go enjoy my damn Sunday, but rather than hem and haw and possibly get this confused, I believe Jimmy Butler has not played 3 games this year. Or there have been 3 games played by the Timberwolves in which Jimmy Butler did not participate. I'll put it that way. Let me confirm that I have that number correct. It may be 2, and I could be having this wrong. It is 2. Okay, so Jimmy Butler did not play against Utah and did not play against Dallas. Okay, against Dallas, Karl Anthony Towns had 46 fantasy points in only 33 minutes. The team did extremely well, and that was his best score of the first 6 games of the year. And then against Utah, he had 62. So, long story short being, again, that's sort of an irrelevant sample size of 2 games. I guess the reason I bring it up is I am a believer in that being a continual trend. I think if you take Jimmy Butler out of that lineup in anything but really, really bad matchups, Karl Anthony Towns is going to average in the low 50s in fantasy points. I think that'll be the case with ceiling for more. So this isn't a matchup I'm particularly afeared of for him. I do think the usage is there. I do think limited potentially Tyus and Teague, and I like the defensive guys they can throw at Wiggins, and just, I would predict him for above 50 tonight. So at 8,600, 9,400, that looks like a really good deal for me. And again, I really like Embiid today, but I project Embiid for a touch under 60. So, yeah, I have him like 8 points higher than Karl Anthony Towns, but on DK, he's $3,200 more. That's, a little hard to get behind $3,200. So, yeah, there's my complete take on that. Forbes or Tyus FanDuel GPP. Tyus is $800 or $900 more. But in a vacuum, I would probably rather play Tyus still. There's just a slightly better upside. Forbes is limited by his position. Forbes in cash. Like, I'll save $900 and get my average of 22 out of Forbes and not deal with, hopefully Tyus is okay. I don't know what the chances that Tyus has limited minutes or exposure in this game due to injury, but it's not nothing. It's 15%. It's some chance that he randomly, Derrick Rose just did it. Where it's like, oh, my foot's not so good, and I'm out after 5 minutes. Well, we could have seen that coming. Tyus was good in that game, but a little concern there. Dwight doesn't rebound anymore, you guess. I think we're looking at a pretty small sample size. He's played approximately 27 minutes on an NBA court this year. Swinging over to the Restream chat. You like Booker for 7,900? That's fine. Any shooting guard plays on FanDuel tonight was the question. Booker at 7,900 is an absolutely fine play in tournaments. I'm looking at the mock lineup I was tying with before. Devin Booker is in it. $7,900, too good of a price for him. The matchup is obviously bad, but looking specifically at the position, the two guys I have sitting in here right now are Devin Booker and Terrence Ross, but again, I loaded these guys in an hour and a half ago when it was possible. Both the John boys would be out for Orlando. Only one is missing. I think McCollum is fine, but I'm not thrilled. I don't want to spend $10K on DeMar DeRozan, but if you had enough value and it led you to it, again, the guy has scored 64 times this year or something. I like Evan Fournier a lot. If you're looking at a mid-price guy, $5,800 is a perfectly reasonable price for him. Obviously, very scoring dependent. He's had 3 games this year that, had like 15, 15, and 12 in 3 games this year. That is not exciting in 25, 6, and 7 minutes. But the other ones are 25, 42, 36, 29, 34. So just, his average scoring is up there, but doesn't scream cash. But I don't mind Fournier at all. Kogi at 56 is more than I want to spend. Green at 53 is better than a Kogi at 56, but still more than I want to spend. Garrett Temple at 44. I'm not excited about playing Garrett Temple, but that's a very good price for Garrett Temple. He frequently gets 30-plus minutes. If this game stays close, there are 4 games this year he got 30-plus minutes in. He had 43, 15, 27, and 22 fantasy points. For $4,400, that's objectively very, very good. The 3 games he got under 30 minutes, by the way, he had 17, 17, and 23. So there's nothing wrong with playing Garrett Temple. And again, it's Phoenix. That's someone you like to play. So I'm not going to play Dylan Brooks, Josh Hart in tournaments. Marco Bellinelli I like a lot in tournaments. Again, I think he stands to gain. Him or Bertans stand to gain the most, which I guess I will check and see what position Ebert is a small forward. Minimum price small forward on FanDuel, where again, you get to drop the lowest scored, and small forward is shit. So I have some fair amount of love for Davis Bertans there. If Dante Cunningham can do it, so can I, and so can Davis Bertans. Can we get a thumbs up for Eddie? Thanks. Someone. Awesemo.com said that. Hey, look at that. Someone's looking out for me. I don't know who that is at Awesemo.com. I'm starting to think that maybe it's like that one Star Trek episode where there's that sort of computer that's running the whole town, and even Alex is some sort of android. I haven't figured out the whole theory, but I'm working on it. McGee, 7,700 or 8 and 8K on FanDuel for tournaments. If I have to play one of those two guys... Oh, boy. That's actually really close for me. I think I would play JaVale McGee. Ayton was good against Gasol the last time, has shown that he can play even in a potential blowout, has real offensive upside, so it is very close for me, but I'll go on hoping to get 7 blocks out of JaVale McGee on FanDuel scoring. So between those two guys, I would be slightly more inclined to save 300 and play McGee at lower ownership as well, I think. So Ayton, McGee, or Gasol is Gasol for me. I don't think Gasol is that owned. I really like Marc Gasol. Click that like button, you freeloaders. Evan and Kat or DeMar and Ayton? How does the math work out there? DeMar is 9. Ayton is 8. That's 17. Kat is 9 and Evan is 5. So you give me 2 options, one of which costs 17K and one of which costs 14K. Confusing. Jonathan Simmons only 4,100 and starting. Are they starting Jonathan Simmons? I thought they were starting Wesley Wundu. Let me see if we have some news there. Cunningham and Bertans are starting, by the way. So there it is. If you wanted to play Dante Cunningham, which I wouldn't, but if you wanted to play Dante Cunningham, that's some nice news for you there. They're keeping Cunningham in the starting lineup. I'm going to go find Orlando's starting lineup because I think it's out. Yeah, they're starting Wesley Wundu. Simmons is not starting. Yee, who is passing off false information. Yeah, naughty boy. Small forward on FanDuel if not playing LeBron. Yeah, we've been through this, but again, I don't like anyone at their price. Assuming it's tournaments, the guys I have really no issue with you playing: Wiggins, Evan Turner, Trevor Ariza, Kyle Anderson, Davis Bertans, McCall Bridges. I can see going there. So 2 of those guys go with God. I guess Dante Cunningham, if you really think, in his 10th year in the league, he's really turned the corner or whatever. But, yeah, I wouldn't be too happy about that. Tell everyone who's the best team in the East, Eddie. The best team in the East is the Boston Celtics, but I say that with an incredible amount of respect for the Raptors and the Bucks, and a growing amount of hesitancy that I speaketh the truth. I'm sticking with it that the Celtics will win the East, but I'm watching and I'm accruing evidence, and I think I have the Bucks second now. So I think the person asking is doing so for the purpose of me disrespecting the Raptors, and I'm really going to respond by telling you that from the beginning of the year I've bumped Raptors from the clear number 2 to now a slight number 3 behind the Bucks, which no doubt will make you incredibly pleased. Favorite power forward on FanDuel? I want to say Marc Gasol. Let me see if there's anyone cheaper who really made my socks roll up and down. Wait, I said Marc Gasol. I mean LaMarcus Aldridge. They both have Mark in their name. Give me a break. 8,100 Aldridge. Pretty cheap. Gotta like that spot. Don't want to pay that much for Gordon. Don't want to pay that much for Ingram. Don't want to pay that much for Kuzma. Don't want to pay that much for Ibaka. Pascal's cute in tournaments. Don't want to pay that much for Minu. Yeah. So yeah, it's LaMarcus Aldridge. Largely by virtue of everyone else being really shit priced. But yep. It is not, point of fact, Yvonne Robb. Say what you will about Premium Slat. They fire out some messages a lot quicker on the YouTube channel. You have been playing $3, $1.25, 20 max entry contests. Would you be more inclined to play 60 unique lineups through the 3 tournaments, the same 20 in each, or another option? Thanks, Eddie. Off the top of my head, I would be most inclined to play the same 20 in all of them. Because, A, it makes little sense to... Well, for a couple of reasons. One, it's easier. You build 20 lineups. It's easier to build 20 lineups than 60 lineups, and time not spent doing that is time you spend doing other things, like better contest selection, more research, keeping up on Twitter and stuff. So there's a real dollars and cents benefit to spending less time, so 20 is better than 60 for that reason. B, generally, I think it's a mathematical maxim that your first 20 lineups will be better than your second 20, will be better than your third 20. C, I wouldn't know how to correctly distribute them. I guess you could just distribute them at random or something, but I'll be pretty annoyed when my nut lineup is in the quarter every night, as opposed to knowing that I have $4.25 beyond all my lineups. So, in a vacuum there. McGee or Towns for cash? I'm going to say Towns again. How does Ayton not have 40-plus DFS points tonight? It's not like a good matchup. How? He gets in some foul trouble. Look, I like Ayton just plenty, but he's no longer cheap anymore. He doesn't have, especially a lot of people have been asking about FanDuel, tend to pick up a lot of steals and blocks, which factors in when you're talking about upside. Again, really unpredictable for when you get the 3 steal, 3 block days out of Wendell Carter Jr. so that he randomly spikes a 60 burger, or Noah Vonleh so that he randomly hits 45, or any number of these other things we're talking about. But there are guys who more clearly have the capacity to do so. So you deal with certain players where it's like, Tim Hardaway Jr., he's already done that once this year, and he probably averages, I'm going to ballpark this, 0.8 steals a game and 0.4 blocks a game. So the odds of him getting more than like 1-1 is really, really unlikely. And when you're playing on FanDuel, that makes it, well less likely dude's going to put up 70. It's the reason Draymond is always decent in tournaments on FanDuel, because he can get 9 combined steals and blocks. And then even if he has 4.7 rebounds and 8 assists, he still gets a monster game. You guess Rose is going to play tonight? He gonna try. He's not cheap anymore, but he gonna try. Bridges 3,900 or Simmons 4,100 on FanDuel tournaments. I'm fine with either of those. Probably slightly prefer Simmons. Not in love with either of them, but both gonna be very low owned. You're looking at 2% on both of them. Don't Google or Rose. I don't even know what that means. Booker or Mike on DraftKings point guard. Booker 7,400, Mike 79. for me, Conley is the slightly better cash option. Like, he's looked really good. And again, we are understandably concerned with spending almost 8K on Mike Conley. Hasn't been healthy for a long time. Looks pretty good this year, and the matchup is pretty strong. And we're in Phoenix, so a little more likely that game stays close. So I will generally, for cash, say Conley. Tournaments, really, as you like it. Salt to taste. Do I like slow-mo tonight? I'm still shocked from the last slow-mo versus Phoenix game. I don't think I can take running him out there again. But yes, objectively, he has the chance to really play 30 minutes and score more than 30 fantasy points, and he's like 4.5, so nothing wrong with slow-mo in tournaments, but I have no confidence. But yes, obviously there's an upside that could occur. JJJ on FanDuel is an elite tournament play, and he will probably disappoint you. How come you aren't that high on Rose tonight? He's going to see massive usage even with Tyus playing. Because he's going to be popular, and because he's still Derrick Rose, and because he's still a guy who doesn't pick up a lot of peripherals, and because I'm not convinced his body is right. Derrick Rose playing 40 minutes as hard as I've seen Derrick Rose play in 5 years. And again, I'm a dozen years older than Derrick Rose. But I can tell you that there are times when we have the money tournament at the gym, and I'm going all out, and I'm sprinting my ass around, and I push myself to my, admittedly, far less impressive than Derrick Rose's limit. I'm not right for a few days. And the next game he went out and played 5 minutes and came out. So I have no issue with you playing Derrick Rose. I'll say exactly what I said before. He has a very real ceiling. Feel free to play Derrick Rose. The ownership will have come down some based on the fact that, obviously he had an injury thing there and that screwed a lot of people and the prices come up. I have no issue with you playing Derrick Rose in a tournament. I'm not super on him because, again, I can see lots of ways it doesn't work out, and he's still going to be fairly popular. You're going to end up with 15-20% on Derrick Rose. So I'm very meh on him. There's a lot of variables there that just can't be predicted. Would you punt Bertans on FanDuel? Yes, I think Bertans is an excellent punt on FanDuel, where small forward is largely shit. 3,500 seems good. 4K guard on DK. Okay, I shall handle that question specifically. One moment. 9 so far for Kelly Oubre. 3/4 of a point for Noah Vonleh. Are you in foul trouble again, Noah Vonleh? That will piss me off. 4K guard on DK. Bellinelli, I like a lot in tournaments. I've mentioned him, a few times now. I don't think I'd want him to get the start. Last 4 games, 23, 23, 23, 27 minutes. Last 3 games, more than 20 fantasy points. And, missing Rudy Gay gets more usage off the bench. So definitely 4K. I think he works in tournaments. Trier is already playing, so that's a non-option. Simmons at 3,900 I do think is just fine. Yeah. Isaiah Canaan is very playable. Patty Mills is very playable. I think it's more likely that he repeats than, say, Cunningham. But that's just because Patty Mills hits a ceiling game 8 times a year, and Dante Cunningham hits a ceiling game once every leap year. So, that. So there are some names that would fit your criteria. Let us continue. Tyus won't see 42. Part of that was absolutely because Rose got hurt. Yeah, but Rose could get hurt again. Like, I can't say... Like, if I'm saying there's a chance Rose gets screwed because Rose gets hurt, and you're saying, well, Tyus will only get an upside if Rose gets hurt. Rose just got hurt, and Rose getting hurt is kind of a thing. I don't know how long you've watched basketball, but Derrick Rose getting hurt would not exactly set the world on fire. Rose is still going to see 30 minutes regardless. I'll be off Tyus. Yeah, generally for tournaments, I'm a little more inclined to play Rose than Tyus, I think. He'll be less popular. Tyus will be higher owned. So I think I'm a little more inclined towards Rose. What about Jonas Valanciunas? Like him quite a bit. What is the logic of Memphis shooting guard minutes rotation? It is beyond me. And that is fairly rare. Usually, whereas I don't always agree with the logic, I watch a lot of press conferences, I read a lot of notes, I listen to a lot of podcasts, and usually even if I don't agree with what they're doing with the rotation in, say, Sacramento, I understand why they're doing it. I have no fucking clue what they're doing with the shooting guards. None. I have no what they're doing. Shelvin Mack, in addition to playing the backup point guard to Mike Conley, is randomly spending 15 minutes a game at shooting guard. I don't know why that guy is getting minutes over guys who are both better players and younger players. Like, you gotta give me one or the other. It's like when Kyrie left Cleveland to go to Boston. Guys usually leave towns because they either want more money or a better chance at winning a title. Kyrie and Shorty would have neither. That's very strange. You don't see that a lot. Same thing with playing time. Usually it's, well, we want to play the better dude who gives us a chance to win, or we want to play the younger dude and give him some experience. Then you have Shelvin Mack getting a ton of time over lots of other guys. Like Garrett Temple, I get. I don't think it's what I do, But I get the Derek Temple idea. He's a very, very good defender. They play together complementary, and maybe gives them a better chance of winning today than some of their other worse defensive but better offensive players. So you're starting him over Wayne Selden or Dylan Brooks, and okay, I get that. The whole Shelvin Mack getting 30 minutes off the bench repeatedly thing blows my mind. But if Kawhi sits, I would much rather have Green at shooting guard for cheaper in the most paced up spot you can be in. Okay. Utah is not a good matchup. Correct. What does your first comment have to do with Rose still being... Oh, God, you guys are commenting too much. Rubio is a horrible defender. Incorrect. Rubio is a weird defender. Rubio is plus steals, plus DRPM, negative. Like, if you look at Ricky... There were a while that, in several metrics, Ricky Rubio was the best defensive point guard in the NBA, which I used to laugh at, and was frequently a point of contention between me and people who were entirely stat heads. Without naming names, there were any number of times for a 1.5 year period, people were like, not playing this guy, he's playing Rubio, he's the best defensive point guard in the NBA. I'm like, yeah, he's not. I understand you have one stat that's computed a certain way that says that, but having watched him play some 400 hours of basketball and really liking Ricky Rubio's, I have a Ricky Rubio jersey, I like Ricky Rubio, he's not the best defensive point guard in the NBA. It's a ludicrous concept. But he is statistically difficult to categorize for a number of reasons. And it's because defense can be gauged a whole lot of ways. Jones versus Fred VanVleet. Jones in cash, Fred VanVleet in tournaments is fine. Anything, any idea? Tyus or Fred VanVleet? I've answered your question. I'm answering everything I can see. You guys are spamming it a little bit, and I'm looking at 3 chats, so I do apologize if I miss your question, and it's not pejorative. Jazz pace helps Rubio's defense. Jazz pace helps Rubio's defensive stats. And again, their pace is not particularly notable at this point. They started out wicked fast. It's slowing down. It will continue to slow down. They started the year like 5th in pace, and now they're like 15th, I think. But it's going to go down. Thoughts on Vooch? Just fine in tournaments. Really hard to predict this year for me. He just randomly goes off in certain spots. But I have no strong take on it. You got a side thing going on here, disregard. Yeah, people are arguing with each other, and when they're telling each other their shit, I can't say if they're telling me I'm shit. I'm like, I don't think I'm shit. I'm just trying to figure it out. Bellinelli or Mills? Like, I'm going to play Bellinelli there every day of the week. Maybe it's wrong. Mills will outscore Bellinelli 40% of the time in this spot, but he's going to be like 12 times owned because he put up 1 billion yesterday. So, like, I'll just play Bellinelli. Patty Mills is who he is. He's a very quality NBA guy. He's absolutely deserves to be a backup guard in the NBA. But that's what he is. In most games, he's going to get you 15 to 19. So yesterday he puts up 30, whatever. Yeah, that could happen again, but I'm going to look at the previous sample size of his last 473 NBA games, I guess, and say, no, I'm going to go with Bellinelli, who will just be 2% owned as opposed to 21% on Patty Mills out of nowhere. Joe Valor, McGee. Again, obviously, there's a significant pricing discrepancy there. I would rather play McGee in cash and would rather play J Val in a tournament. Eddie, is Devin Booker playing? Something fishy is going on. Can you check your sources? Hey, Igor? What? Voicemail. Bad luck. Okay, I'll check Google instead. One sec. Igor didn't take my call. Kokoskov is how it's pronounced. Kokoskov. I'm checking my sources. And if you're curious what that means, I am typing the words Devin Booker into Twitter. So these are inside sources, tools that only certain people like me have. Mac or Gasol DK utility GPP. I've never banned anyone from our premium chat yet, but I'm just kidding. I like your sass. You have a very nice sass. That was some excellent sass right there. Yeah, I have nothing on Devin Booker indicating that his status is up in the air. I believe he is technically probable. I will happily check that for you if you want, but the expectancy seems to be that D-Book will be out there doing his thing. This is not a back-to-back on either end for them. Ayton or Gasol, I'm going to play Marc Gasol probably in cash or tournament. Towns, Aldridge, LeBron, and Wiggins all in one lineup. Will that be chalky? No. I don't know if you're talking about FanDuel or DK, though the pricing would make that almost impossible on FanDuel. So I'm going to assume that's a DraftKings lineup. Wiggins is going to be very low owned out of those guys. You'll have LeBron in the mid-20s. You'll have Aldridge also in the mid-20s. You'll have Towns mid-20s, maybe up to 30 even. But Wiggins is your lowest owned guy there significantly. And you've left yourself 4 spaces to pivot. And that lineup is fine. Like, people are always like, I'm going to fade this chalky guy. Like, that's 4 expensive chalky guys. But as we've established previously, there's like 21 guys who cost between 35 and 4,600 with some sort of upside, of which you now have to pick 4. You can certainly pick 4 that other people aren't going. Like, you could play a Kogi instead of Wiggins in that lineup, and you've already made it a little more distinctive. You know, so yeah, I'm not worried about that lineup construction. Looking back at the premium Slack for a minute, see if I missed anything. I still see your Mac or Gasol DK utility still sitting there. Wiggins, McGee, or McCollum. I'm still playing JaVale McGee and cash out of those 3 guys. If I have no significant other exposure to the Timberwolves, I would play Wiggins in tournaments. Otherwise, I would play McCollum. Thoughts on Laker point guards? I don't think I want either priced in the 5s. Like, Rondo has looked better than Lonzo, but, you know, in fairness, Mo Wagner has looked better than Lonzo, and he's not even playing. It's been ugly, bro. You would think they are guys who carry some sort of upside. So I can't strictly on a slate where they're both going to be minuscule owned say, don't play Rondo, don't play Lonzo. But I have no intuitive sense of how the hell that's going to break down. But at their prices, they're both guys who could see 30 minutes tonight and could score 40-plus fantasy points. So I would not object out of hand to seeing either of them in a tournament lineup. But I'm going to give you a strict no on Alex Caruso. Don't do it. All right, last look on the non-premium Slack, the steerage Slack. Basically, the premium Slack channel is all the people on the top deck of the Titanic who are enjoying cigars and brandy and dancing. There's classical music. And the rest of you, talking to you, YouTube, you're down in steerage where you will shortly drown in ice-cold water. Forbes or Kanan on FanDuel tournaments? I'll go Forbes. I just like the matchup enough more. Still don't think he sinks you, and you're dropping a score. I don't feel too strongly about it. Kanan maybe has a bit more upside. Has had higher scoring games than Forbes this year at the top end of his range. But I really hate the matchup, so I'll go with Forbes. Don't love either of them. Never mind on Booker. Suns favored in Vegas. You checked that out. Suns are favored? Suns aren't favored. Suns have to be like 4 or 5 point dogs. I'm calling bullshit on your Suns is favored thing. Let me head over to, I don't know, I'll load the link to Vegas Insider. They currently have Phoenix as 4 point dogs. Yeah, that sounds about right. So I'm calling bullshit. What are my thoughts on Fournier FanDuel GPP? I like him a lot. He's too cheap. That's fine. No issues. You may have all the Fournier, all the fornication that makes you happier. Gay out. Very true. He is both out and gay. I got nothing. Okogie or Van Vliet on DK. I like them both. I think they're both just tournaments. If I had to play one of them in cash, it would be Okogie. But I like them both. Van Vliet will be even lower owned than Okogie, who will be too low owned. Anyone but LeBron and McGee have been unpredictable on the Lakers. Yes. Yes, that's true. I mean, it doesn't help that they had random guys get suspended for 3 and 4 games in the middle and all that stuff. Does overpriced DeMar matter on 4-game slate to you or fade? You can certainly play DeMar DeRozan. There is a very real chance that in a matchup that I think is just fine for him, that DeMar DeRozan goes out and puts up 60 tonight. You're obviously playing a lot like you're asking about on FanDuel, where he's even less advantageously priced. But, DeRozan's game logs this year are 36, 49, 64. 27, 61, 62, 40, and 35. So through 8 games, he has 63 times. Like, that's a lot. So you certainly can't make any argument that I'm going to consider very compelling that he couldn't put up 60 tonight. And if you played DeMar DeRozan on FanDuel at 9,900, you're going to get him at 7% owned. And if he puts up 60, you're going to feel pretty good. Now, do I think he will put up 60 37.5% of the time? No, I don't. but do I think that it mathematically works out that he puts it up 10 to 15% of the time over the course of the year? Which, again, 15% of the time would be, in theory, if he plays 80 games, you're looking at 12 times over the course of the year. Maybe that's too high. So let's say 10% of the time. I think he does it 5 more times this year or something. Still, if he does it, you put yourself in a massively good slot where a lot of people are going to punt that position. He would be the highest scoring player on the slate at shooting guard by probably at least 20. Maybe Booker gets you 40. So, yeah, I have absolutely no issue with fading DeMar DeRozan. It's FanDuel where positions really matter a shit ton more. Like, if you look at best possible lineup on DraftKings and best possible lineup on FanDuel, best possible lineup on DraftKings is basically the 8 dudes who smashed. Best possible lineup on FanDuel is usually like 7 dudes who smashed, and then you're like, oh, it's really weird. You got Danny Green in there at 25.3. Okay. So, there are, being just good at your position matters a lot. There are times that you have, best possible lineup has 9K centers who score 43 because no other center scored 42. Until Nurkic went last night, center was an abortion. Like, I really liked Whiteside yesterday because leading to that point this year, he has not been the specious, uncountable on. His morale looked down. Now, he banged his knee. They're acting like it was somewhat the injury, and I'm sure that was at least a convenient excuse. But Whiteside was acting like, yeah, most games I'm going to play 30 minutes and I'm engaged and I'm going to be a stud. And it was a good matchup. And he went out and he got like 22 fantasy points. It was terrible. But it almost wasn't that bad because going into the late game, no center had more than like 32 fantasy points. Everyone was bad. Every single goddamn one. There was Wendell Carter, who isn't a center on FanDuel. So FanDuel specifically I'm talking about. On DK, Wendell Carter, again, was just way the hell too damn cheap and was 45% owned and crushed hopes and dreams. And I would never have recommended playing Whiteside not in your second center spot. So it would have been just if you were running him next to Wendell Carter. Wendell Carter was pretty much an all-in for me. But until, Nurkic went out and McGee went out and there were some decent late games, the best center on the entire slate was like 32 fantasy points. And so Whiteside ended up not screwing you that much. The late centers tilted that. But there was a while there it would have been a unique situation. Limit Kawhi. I love Kawhi a lot if you get news that he's in, starting, and unlimited. Otherwise, I wouldn't play any. Val and Aldridge or Towns and Gordon on DK. I like both those. They're both really just tournaments for me. So I'll play Towns and Aaron Gordon between those two. You don't think LeBron reaches his ceiling if Kawhi plays? Well, LeBron never reaches his ceiling, really. LeBron, only when he's forced to, goes out there and actually, threatens like 60s and 70s and stuff. He's pretty laid back until we get towards April now. He's not in easy mode and he's not slacking or anything, but he understands when he has to turn it on. He understands he has only so many miles left on the tires. So LeBron's generally, grinding his way into the 50s and 55. Tim Hardaway Jr. went to the locker room. Tim Hardaway Jr. is back from the locker room. Donovan Mitchell will not play tomorrow. Derek Favors will play tomorrow. Jay Crowder will play tomorrow. Bits of news. All right, last couple questions, and then I am out of here. Leonard must be playing tonight. There hasn't been any news on him. I would think this is an easy call for the team to make if he's out. I disagree. I don't think Kawhi will play today. I would definitely place an even money bet on the fact he doesn't play. They've announced he's only going to play one end of back-to-backs. He's going to play today or tomorrow. If he plays today, which is possible, to me they're saying he's 100% healthy. Otherwise, there's no reason not to give him a day to recover. Or he puts his foot down, makes a stink, and says, no, I want to play the Lakers. I want time against LeBron. I want to be on national TV or whatever. I don't know about any of that shit. But I'd still think it's more likely than not that they give him another day of rest since he's at least a little bit banged up with his ankle and that he plays tomorrow. That's my guess. Is Booker out? I have no reason to believe so. That's what I've got. Do I like FanDuel or DK and why, please? Again, I'm not allowed to play because of my day job. This is my night job, but my day job is in daily fantasy sports, so I'm legally precluded from playing, and FanDuel and DraftKings have shut down my accounts, and I'm not allowed to anymore. But I preferred playing on FanDuel because to me it just added a level of skill that wasn't there on DraftKings. DraftKings, not as much as, say, Fantasy Draft, but sort of defaults to long division, and FanDuel just sort of adds another small tier of skill, which is positional scarcity. Like, oh, this is a day where I have to spend up at this position and not spend up on this position. So that sets aside your playing preferences. If you are not frequently checking news, and if you are not using late swap for more than swapping out injured guys, you should never play on DraftKings. You can't win. That's a slight overstatement. But long term, you won't win if you're not frequently swapping guys out for reasons other than injury. And you won't win if you're not checking news when others it's already too hard to beat the damn rake. You're just not going to win. So, yeah, if you are not properly using late swap to optimize in ways other than getting injured dudes out of there, you just shouldn't play on DraftKings, period. Do I like Lowry with or without Kawhi anyway? I like Lowry tons without Kawhi, and I don't think Kawhi plays. With Kawhi, he's appropriately priced, and he's fine to play in a tournament, but I like him much, 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 much less. Like, he would be in my top 5 tournament plays if Kawhi is out. If Kawhi's in, it's mid to high 8s, Kyle Lowry. I'm going to go answer a couple more questions in our premium Slack chat. 10 minutes or so until that late lock. Thanks for stopping by. Hopefully was able to help some of you. I apologize for my lack of preparation, but again, it was a busy day for me and I'm just back into the house. I'm sure I will be back on yet again tomorrow with one of my several estimable, redoubtable, vertiginous co-hosts. And until that time, catch me on the Twitter if you have any further questions. Best of luck in your contest, everyone. Good night.